You are listening to Salcedo Paranormal with your host, James Salcedo.
Welcome to episode 489 of Salcedo Paranormal. And tonight I have a returning guest, and I will talk more about that in a minute. As always, you can find all episodes of the show, along with links to social media and other ways to contact me at the podcast page. And that is salcedoparanormal.podbean.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.podbean.com. Always happy to hear from you all, whether you have comments or questions or topic suggestions or stories of paranormal experiences, whether they're your own or from others that you trust. Happy to either read those or have you join me on the show to talk about them. Thank you all for listening, whether you are here on Discord for the live streams, or if you listen on the podcast or YouTube feeds, or on the Exiled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. There you can hear replays of 2 episodes of my show every night at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern, right before Exiled Minds Radio comes on. As always, I want to thank Michael Strange, host of Exiled Minds Radio, as well as Liam Martin, also known as Rohan, of the Exiled Minds Podcast, for producing the shows and putting them up on the station. And if you'd like to support the show, there are some different ways to do that. You can always share the show with others and rate and review it on your podcast platform of choice. Also, I have some fiction and nonfiction books in the paranormal, on Amazon. You can check out as well. I also have a Patreon page where I'll be putting out content whenever I can, and it has 1 episode there so far. And there you can sign up to any of the membership tiers, and you will get all those episodes from there. And then also I have a couple of ways to just donate to the show, one-time donation links through PayPal and Venmo, as there are expenses in making this show, in equipment and research materials, and then travel expenses. Less than a month now from when I will be heading to the Mid-Michigan Paracon. That's November 4th and 5th at the Soaring Eagle Casino in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. And that's going to be a weekend thing. It's a Saturday and Sunday. Any donations to the show as of right now would be appreciated, but not expected. But any donations will be going straight towards that event, my expenses for going to and staying there for that event. So it's just been an interesting year, and I could use any help you all are willing to give if you are able. And or if you want to go there, you can check out the website and see if there's any tickets left. And then, of course, I do plan on going from now on every year whenever possible. So if you don't make it this year and you want to help the show, there's ways to do that. And then, of course, you can always look forward to next year as well. So I think that covers everything. And I've already mentioned my guest for tonight. And a very good friend of the show does all the music that you hear just about on the station, along with Mike. But I really had him on a while ago on the same topic. And so I want to welcome back Rohan to the show. Hello, how are you doing? Thank you for coming back.
Thank you very much for the... Oh, I appreciate that, James. That was a wonderful intro there. Appreciate that. You're getting really good at this, aren't you? Thanks for having me back on.
Yeah, you do enough. I guess you do. You get used to it. So it's funny. I checked back. It's been over a year since we did this. Just over a year. Doesn't seem like that. I remember when you were on.
Wow. Yeah. Wow. That is. Yeah, it really does fly. It does. Yeah, just for me, definitely. But that's interesting for me to gauge where I'm at in my personal story as well. Then that it's a year on, like anniversary stuff. You can just kind of look back and see where you've been, can't you? That's useful information off the bat. Well done, James. See, that's why you're the expert.
Well, and because I was going back because I want to make sure I use a similar episode title and everything. So, and of course, you've been on for a couple other shows, at least one other show. I probably more. I'm terrible at remembering these things now, but you've been part of a couple of roundtables, which have also been great. And those are great, but they're also, for anyone listening, they can be hard to schedule. So that's why I'm not doing as many of those as I was. Everyone has their own lives, and things to do, and people get busy. But I do plan on trying to have more of those throughout this next year, just here and there. I think it was too much to try to do every month, but whenever possible, we will do those. And so, and of course, this episode is about more ghost stories from the UK. So thank you for coming on, and everyone listening too. You're going to, if you listen through the podcast feed, you're going to get an extra treat here. You're going to be hearing sort of what these shows sound like in the radio format. So really excited for that as well. That's also thanks to Rohan. So, but what have you been up to since with your show and everything since we last talked?
Yeah, appreciate that, James. Yeah, well, since we last talked, I mean, I've started doing. I took a bit of a break for a while, and then a little I kind of ended up doing it sort of seasonal, and then just taking a break, and then in the next season. So I've kind of started up again. I had a few technical glitches, so my sound cards blew out and stuff. But yeah, I've got it adjusted back up. I've got all fancy new equipment now. I've got a nice camera and fancy new sound card, so it's looking good. And I'm really excited about the Troubled Minds radio network and the station, and you being on it and stuff. So it's been really great to feel involved with something meaningful. That seems like it matters. And there's other people that are as passionate as I am about it. So I'm really appreciative as much as, as you are when you sort of complimenters and promoters at the beginning of each show. So I appreciate that. But the feeling is mutual is what I'm trying to say.
Oh, no problem. Thank you. Yeah, no, it's been great. I love listening to your show. I definitely recommend it to everyone. And the links for that show are always in the episode description. So definitely go check that out. So, but do you want to get started on the stories here, and then I'll keep track of time and
yeah, sure.
We'll go forward with that.
Yeah. So on the last episode then a year ago, as we just discussed, we've got a guy I got to meet known as the Ghost Detective in Britain. This is Mr. A.H. Perkins, and he's got a little book from here, so we'll do a couple of chapters, and I just want to open it up for you today. It just happened to have a card in there, just marked a page. So I thought, well, we'll go for this one. It's on chapter 9, and I think we'd started at the beginning before, so we'll dive straight in if that's all right with you, James.
Yeah, sounds great. Okay. Looking forward to it.
Okay, great. So it's for chapter 9 from the Ghost Detective A.H. Perkins. It was at least 2 weeks later that I managed to free up sufficient time to go and do more interviews, because he's talking a long game narrative about his, he's having to, do his daily life stuff like you just mentioned.
Oh, yeah.
He hadn't had, so yeah, like say the scheduling and Ferrante was tough. So he got busy as well, which I thought that was interesting, like a synchronicity too, because he's sort of making the same complaints that we've got, kind of thing, because when you're a creator, that's kind of how it goes. So he's in this scenario for at least 2 weeks. He's not been managed to get much time, but he managed to free up 2 weeks of sufficient time to go and do more interviews, to go and get your content, right? So he's freed up some time. He had to rebook 3 interviews due to some work commitments. Okay, so it's not easy in this game. Just like you were saying, A.H. Perkins been doing this for decades. So it echoes what you're saying. It's tough stuff. Okay. So he goes on. My travels this time around found me at a picturesque village of Little Brington, close to Althorpe Estate, owned by Earl Spencer. I was there to interview Ted, a retired clockmaker. The interview was conducted in Ted's home, which I must say I found quite fascinating. Over the years, Ted had collected various timepieces, and his lounge is a testament to this. These were clocks of all shapes and sizes. Ted could say I was intrigued by his collection and invited me to take a closer look as he made a cup of tea. All the clocks were in perfect working condition and set to the correct time. Ted returned with the tea, and we sat ourselves down to start this interview. His tale shows that personal possessions as buildings can be connected to the spirits of past owners. Ted's tale all started when he met a chap living in Daventry in the south of Northamptonshire. The chap had an old clock that needed to be repaired. He asked Ted if he thought it was worth fixing. After examining the timepiece, Ted said that it was worth repairing and yes, he could do it. To Ted's surprise, the chap seemed disappointed. He then explained to Ted that his late mother had always thought the clock to be haunted from the day she brought it. Ted thought this is slightly amusing and took the clock off to fix it. Nothing untoward happened, and after fixing it, Ted took the clock back to the chap. After about a week of the chap owning the clock, he was rushed to hospital with appendicitis. Living on his own, he asked the neighbour to look after his house while he was away. Over the next few days, the neighbour walked around the outside of the house on several occasions to check doors and windows were locked. On several occasions, the neighbour heard strange noises coming from within. And on an occasion, he went to check if the interior and found nothing. So they're hearing the sounds and not finding anything in there. Okay. When the chap came out of the hospital, his neighbour told him what happened during the week and about all the strange noises from in his house. The chap decided there and then that it must be the clock. Okay, so he's blaming the clock straight away because it's only just come into his life, sort of thing. So they only had it a week. So
Yeah.
saying it must be to blame, and he's vowed to get rid of it. Maybe his mother had been right. Now the chap's daughter had always liked the clock, so he decided to give it to her. I said to Ted, I thought this was a little insensitive, and Ted agreed. Okay, palm it off to your daughter.
Oh, it's causing weird stuff to happen. Oh, well, I'll just give it to my daughter. It'll be okay.
I think this is I don't want this uranium anymore.
Yeah.
You take it.
Yeah.
Okay, so the chap's daughter, she accepted the clock willingly, though. Okay, she likes it. So I suppose it's like if it's rubbish to you, one man's trash is another man's treasure, as the saying goes. So she's got this clock then. So I just lost my spot there. So he gives it to her, and Ted said he thought it was, it says a little insensitive, but she wanted the clock. She took it, and it was fine for a few days. Then the noises started again, and in fact, the noises got so bad that the daughter decided to remove the clock from the house and place it in the garden shed because it was that noisy.
Wow.
So Ted then hears about the clock in the shed, and loving clocks the way he does, he decided to go and see the woman. Ted had worked on this clock and understandably didn't want to see such a lively timepiece just left to rot in a garden shed. Okay, so we offered to take the clock off her hands at a reasonable price, and she agreed to get rid of it. And remember, bear in mind, she only had it a few days. The very first night, Ted, the timepiece fixer, has got this clock, and his wife is woken up by strange noises coming from the lounge. She woke Ted and told him to go see what was there. And Ted was still half asleep, and he walks into the lounge, switches the light on, no sound, nothing out of place, everything's as it should be. So Ted returns to bed, told his wife all was well, drops off to sleep. Within 5 minutes, the noises started again. Ted was up investigating them, and again, nothing to report. So by this time, Ted had had enough. Told his wife if it started again, he can go sort it out herself, and because he needed to get some sleep, right? If she checked a few times, you've got to get to work and stuff. Imagine Mike having to do that. No.
Yeah.
Ghost or no ghost, don't get in some kip. Right. Okay, so he's had enough. So he's saying, right, you need to sort it out yourself. You need to get some sleep. So the following morning, things were a little frosty at breakfast table. Okay. She's not happy with it. So the clock, but it's been decided the clock's got to go straight away. First night. Okay. About 3 days later, a dealer that Ted knew, he knew him quite well as well. He said he came up from Buckingham, which is like sort of just north of London kind of area, not exactly London. So he's drove. Point is, he's drove quite a few miles, maybe say 50 miles or so to come and pick this clock up. And dealers were always popping in to see him anyway, So he's come and drive up for this sort of clock. So Now, this particular dealer took a liking to the haunted clock because, dealership come in, bring in stock and check in stock when we want to buy. So he took a liking to this haunted clock, picks that one out. Okay, so Ted felt it only right if you let the salesman know the clock was supposed to be haunted. But it did not make a difference. He wanted that clock. So the price again, the clock's been sold off again and soon was on its way to Buckingham. What happened next was told to Ted by the very same dealer the next time he saw him. Okay, so next time he saw him, he's had a funky experience too. And he said the very first night, again with the clock at the dealer's house, there was an alarming crashing noises from downstairs. Dealer got up to investigate and found that there's glass, that the glass on the front of the clock, it had fallen out and smashed into the fireplace. He knew of a place that could sell him the new glass. Okay, so the following day, took it for repair in Buckingham, where he is. All right. So as he's standing at the counter at the repair shop, the woman behind the counter said the clock looks similar to a clock she had owned some years ago. Apparently, the woman and her husband had bought an old pub, right? Converted it into the shop that they were in now. Okay, and the clock had been in the property at the time of purchase. So that clock has ended up coming back to where it started.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And, it goes on to say that the woman was intrigued at seeing the clock and said to her brother, who's a bit of a handyman, and he tried to resolder the broken hinge on the back of the clock and stuff. Unfortunately, he had left a soldering iron laying against the wood base of the clock and had burnt a mark into the wood. Sure enough, on close examination of the clock, the burn mark was right where she said it would be, because he'd burnt it years before, so she could confirm it was the same clock. Right, so it's definitely the same one.
Yeah.
And the woman went on to explain on that buying the pub, when they were buying the pub, there were large amounts of fixtures and fittings that needed to be sold off before the conversion could go ahead. This clock must have been sold at the same time, all this stuff together like a big yard sale. So the dealer was astonished and offered the woman the clock at a very reasonable price, again, to get rid of it once again. She accepted the clock back, and the latest report that the clock is peaceful once more. So, however, a strange twist to this tale is that on further checking, it seems that the mother of the chap that first introduced the clock to Ted bought the clock from a pub clearance sale before moving to Daventry. Is it possible that the clock's made its way home? That's what he's concluding it as well, Mr. Alan Perkins. So isn't that an odd one, James? What do you think about that?
Someone or some energy was attached to that thing and felt at home in that one spot and didn't want it. It wasn't going to stop until it got back there. It sounds like. And I mean, there's so many stories. If you just look online for news articles about anything paranormal, I mean, there'll be usually at least once a week or more, there'll be at least one article about, this haunted pub over in the UK. That pops up over and over again. And yeah, so that wouldn't surprise me. That's really amazing though. It was doing things to sort of get itself moved. Like, no, this is not home. What are you doing? And then boom, activity. And then until it got back. That is wild.
Yeah, that is pretty far out. And on the Exiled Minds podcast, we've not touched ghosts yet. Do you know what I'm saying? And I don't really know that much about it. That's why I call you the expert sort of thing. But I mean, so how do you conceptualize that then? Because it's supposed to, we call them inanimate objects, don't we? So I mean, what do you think?
Yeah, I have no idea.
Is it a person moving the clock, or is the clock itself the alive thing, or isn't it strange? Or is someone trapped in it? Do you get that thing like Chucky? You know, there's horror movies with the doll. The guy put himself into the doll, I think.
Yeah, and I think anything is possible, especially, I mean, if, let's say there was a person the original person, the very first person that really loved that clock. I mean, what if they were even the one that made it to begin with? And they really, really attached to it. I think, also, I mean, there are so many that happens a lot in fiction. Clocks seem to be, I mean, if you think of like old grandfather clocks, those old tall ones, how many of those do you see in horror stories, horror movies? They're everywhere.
Oh yeah, good point.
So maybe there is some energy, and I mean, and that's also something that's movement. That's energy that's being used to make movement that is then making more energy. So I wonder if energy can and consciousness can get attached to something, especially if there's already emotion attached to it as well. And then you just, it's just sort of doing things until it gets back to you. But then again, it would have to do more than just make those sounds to get back to where it wants to be, because the chain of custody there, that, I mean, people could have sold it at any point along the line to anyone else. That thing could have been sold across the country, so the circle of people that were that had access to it, it seems like it sort of made noises at just the right times for just the right people. I wonder how many people before, how many people after that first time it was sold, how many people had experiences and just that whole chain. I wonder how that really works. That really is an amazing idea in the story there.
Yeah, that is an interesting point, because you could argue, because I've been to Daventry, I've lived in Daventry. It's any other place other than Nottingham that I've lived in for a while, and it's a very, very small village. But like say, that got sold on to Buckingham, which is closer to London. It's much bigger, and like I say, it's already moved away. If it was stuck in the village, the point is, if you're stuck in a charity shop in the village, you could kind of make sense it's passing around the village and everyone knows each other. But once it's left, then it's a different kettle of fish, isn't it? As you say, it's like, okay. So and you made it, and I really I got a bit of a kick out of that point you mentioning that it's the fact it's a clock. In fact, when I started reading it, I thought a timepiece maker is clock's going to be, because there's something mystique about that, and it's like, what does it do? It's sort of, well, it's measuring itself, but we say it's measuring time and measuring history. So it weirds me out in my brain. It's almost like a clock itself, like the mirror. It's almost fractal in nature by the way that we think of them. So, well, it weirds me out. Like maybe all this stuff is made of thought. And wow, that's just it's pretty wild stuff, James.
And then if you think of that the glass falling out, that seems like once it got to another city and it was close to being maybe going to another massive city, that's when that glass fell out. That's when that really big event compared to all the other events happened. And
right.
then,
yeah, that was that was the extreme part, because it hadn't. It was noises before it, and I'd noticed that as well. It had sort of. I'm glad you brought that back up. Actually, I'd noticed that that's like sort of damaging itself. It was prepared to take a hit, and like I say, maybe it was in fear of, like you've made another good point there. Maybe it was in fear of reaching London, because if it reaches London, it's a tourist city, so it might end up out of the country. Yeah, and if it's going around antique dealerships, like I say, I don't know what year this was. But it's going to be relatively. I don't know if it's within the internet era, because, like you say, if you these days you stick it on eBay, could it's no chance of getting it. So it's, I don't know, but in fact that happens in a film. This exact thing has happened in films actually, where the house does something, where the house calls the people. Was it House on Haunted Hill or The Haunting? One of them.
I don't know.
House kind of. I've seen a movie like that where there's a haunted house or something where they think they've been pulled in for a competition or a thing, and it turns out that they're all fake emails and stuff, and it's the house phone line has done it. It turned out, and you're like, what? It's like called these people to the house, man. Oh my god, so we can finish them off.
Yeah, that's amazing. Well, we're gonna take a just real quick break. If you're listening on the live stream here, just not even a minute, so. Hang on, and we'll be right back. And I have more with my guest, Liam Martin, Rohan.
Hi, this is Liam Martin of the Exiled Minds Podcast, and you're listening to the network that never stops seeking Troubled Minds Radio, KUAP Digital Broadcasting.
It's alive, waiting. Now clear your minds.
I live in the weak and the wounded.
I am the devil, and I am here to do the devil's work.
I just can't take no pleasure in killing. Just some things you gotta do.
7 days.
But I have shed innocent blood. What's blood for, if not for shedding?
There's nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm your number one fan.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Blind, pale, emotionless.
I say girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
You know, it's Halloween.
Nothing to worry about. You're gonna be just fine. I'm your number one fan.
She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
It was an excellent day for an exit.
I like to dissect girls. Did you know I'm utterly insane?
Do you know what the most frightening thing in the world is? It's fear.
Have you checked the children?
How do you know my name? I didn't tell you my name.
Hang up.
I didn't tell him my name.
They're all part of it.
Whatever you do, don't fall asleep.
I'm afraid.
Don't be afraid.
No, be afraid. Be very afraid.
Stay on the road. Keep clear to the moors.
Beware the moonlights.
They mostly come at night. Mostly.
I'm scared to close my eyes. I'm scared to open them. I'm gonna die out here.
An eternal child.
The blackest dies.
What do we do?
Why don't we just wait here for a little while and see what happens?
Welcome to the Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we delve into the mystical, the philosophical, and the cosmic in our quest to uncover the unknown.
You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we peer into the future, embrace the power of AI, and delve deep into the conspiracies that shape our world.
You are listening to Salcedo Paranormal with your host, James Salcedo.
Okay, we are back on Salcedo Paranormal, this very special episode with Rohan, really good friend of the show, and helping me out with this show, making it, putting in some extra content in between these little breaks that we're doing, which normally don't do, and I really appreciate that. And you'll get to hear, if you've just been listening to the podcast feed, you'll get to hear sort of what the show sounds like when it's on the radio, which is kind of the point. We both had this idea of doing this. I forget who had it first, but great idea about putting in some extra content there just to give you all an idea of what it sounds like when you listen to the station. And of course, I definitely recommend you all do that whenever you can. It's an amazing thing because it doesn't require much in the way of your internet data, your signal there. So, and that's the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP Digital Broadcasting. And it's really amazing. And throughout the day, you never know what you're going to hear. And that's also I love that about it because you get to hear everyone that's on the station, and then you never know which episodes are going to show up. So I listen a lot, and then I usually turn the volume down once it's one of my own shows, because I think almost everyone probably does that. But then once mine is done, I just turn the volume back up and see who's next. So welcome back on, Rohan. Thank you for joining me.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. You made some fun points there, because, like I say, I like to. I'm glad you plugged the radio station. Like I say, I put it on and do the same thing. You kind of mute your own. I mean, you kind of get. It kind of blends out after a bit. Although sometimes I've caught myself where, I've been in the garden and I'll put it on my phone. Maybe I have my phone nearby, and then a show will finish, but I'm not close to it, or my hands are dirty, and then mine will come on. And I'll go, so I'll move away from my phone, do something else in the garden, come back, and it's still on. And then I'll hear an interesting point that I didn't know. And it's strange to hear my voice saying it. And I think, well, I don't even know this. So I don't know if you've experienced that. I bet you have.
Oh yes, mainly with more with Mike shows than my shows, but yeah, I've heard that. It's like, wow, I said that, I had that thought. I don't remember. Okay, I like that. Wow. Okay, yeah, that works, and it's just it is amazing. So definitely recommend you all do that and leave it on as much as possible, and listen and so yeah, this has been great. Already that first segment there with that story with the clock and the clock maker and everything. That I feel like I don't know if I've heard a story quite that with that many connections and before. I'm not sure if I have, which really is an amazing one. Maybe here and there, but that whole sequence of events there really is amazing. So I don't know if you want to keep talking about that or move on to the next one here.
Well, yeah, we'll move on to the next one in just a sec. But again, I think it's a testament to. We just mentioned Mike actually on my. Okay, let's dial it all back. So, with this Troubled Minds radio network situation, it's like a place including with Discord. It's a place where you can get together and talk, isn't it? And then you flow, you bounce off of each other with the ideas, and I think that's what happens, and that's why we don't sort of remember, back to the notion that we had, because we're kind of flowing live, and that's why I call it fire and forget. And like I say, this is why it's also so important that we get together and talk about this spooky stuff, because it's starting to turn out that this is normal, So
yeah,
we're and it makes us ahead of the game as well, James. And I know we sort of say it, but it kind of does, and it gives me a little bit of personal security, knowing that at least I'm semi-prepared for the future, sort of thing. Because I think it's going to get weird fast. It happen fast.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and we can only keep so much in our minds, our physical minds, at any given time. So I think that, as much as these shows are for entertainment in their own way, they're also, I think they're great for just getting those thoughts out there, and then they're out there. You can go back to them and hear them, and they can sort of have new connections and new meanings that you didn't think about at the time. And that's another amazing aspect of all this. And that's why I think it's fun to listen to even shows that you've already heard before, because between the last time you listened to a show and then the time you're listening again, you've had more experience. And so things are going to hit you in different ways than they did it at that first time.
Okay, a wonderfully astute point there, James. You know why? Because that happened to me yesterday. Well, we had that. Well, Mike did a show. Mike on Troubled Minds Radio did a show, and it was and a caller called in. Matt called in talking about that. It was a bit of synchronicity of that show, and then I had one as well. And Mike on that show mentioned the Blemmy. The Blemmy came up, I think, on the show before. Okay, they're like headless people supposed to have been, and Kelly's been sharing that for a long time, and that hit me in a new way. Because I kind of forgot about it, and I just never thought to do a show on it, and I started writing a show about that today because I thought, yeah, my God, I just like I say, it's a Pokemon, but in the multiverse, you say you can't catch them all, so we kind of need each other, and I think it's true as well in the sense of it is hive mind, like Mike says that too. You bounce off of each other like that, can't catch them all, hive mind stuff, and yeah, let's roll with it. So,
for sure.
Right, okay. Do you want me to? I'll jump in on this next story, and I've got chapter 10 next, if that's all right with you, James.
Yep, definitely.
Okay, we're all in then. All right, let's bring this forward a bit. Okay, so we heard about the clock coming back to its original house, apparently. So Alan goes on to say, for chapter 10 of the Ghost Detective, Alan Perkins. Before I go on with the next story, which has many of the classic poltergeist activities, I feel I must explain the two theories concerning poltergeist. The first theory put forward is that poltergeist is a relentless or evil spirit trying to communicate with the living. Often, this involves targeting an adolescent member of the family, using them as a type of amplifier, increasing the poltergeist powers. The targeted child would have no knowledge of being used and would be as scared as the rest of the family. If the child was removed from the building, the activity ceases until the child is returned. In some cases, though, the energy created by the poltergeist can be so great, removing the child will only cut down the frequency of the activity. People have often said that the poltergeist can do no physical harm. Normally, I would agree, says Alan, with this statement. However, the emotional stress of having a poltergeist in your home can be far more damaging. And I like that he makes that point. I want to underline that because he does that throughout the book. He's focusing on the emotional damages to people and taking them seriously.
Yes, definitely.
Obviously, he makes a point of saying as well that when I see him in person, you still want to make sure people aren't trying to trick you and take you for an idiot, sort of thing. You've got to get your radar up still. But at the same time, you've got to let people say the thing, haven't you?
Oh yes, yeah. It's it may sound. I think it's it can all be sort of, people can write it all off until it happens or something weird happens to them, and then it's a lot harder to do that, and at least honestly do that. And so no, it's having been through a number of weird experiences. Even though most of them haven't really been that bad, there's a couple that have been, and it stays with you for years after it happens. So, but please continue.
Oh, just on a side note there, and it was that happened to Michael Shermer, physicist, that was all a bit like, he's all kind of anti-paranormal and that kind of stuff, and he had one, and that was a clock. I think we mentioned it last time, where it was on his wedding day sort of thing, and his bride's dad, like the grandfather's clock, started working in the drawer, and it only worked for that day, and he'd never been able to fix it. So he changed his mind about it all. But then once the experience kind of wore off a bit, a couple of years later, it was poo-pooing it all again.
Yeah,
do you know what I mean? So I think we do that, don't we? We kind of try and ignore it a bit.
And I remember that one. That was like a clock. I think it was a clock radio as well. I think it had like something to do with radio, music came from it, and then it was acting up. So. But please go ahead.
Okay, so they were talking about how the poltergeist, one idea is that it's aiming at children. It's like an evil spirit. And it says, as an adolescent, we went through the same emotional confusion. The second, so it's like you're talking about, you're trying to use it as an amplifier. And it says the second theory is that in some rare cases, this confusion can trigger PK or psychokinesis. This is the ability to move objects through the power of thought. I'm not saying that the child concerned is actively or deliberately moving things. I doubt that they even know they have the power to do so. It is emotion that will trigger their power, anger being the strongest. Well, it turns out, actually, that's not true anymore, because MIT did a study into emotions, and it turns out authenticity is supposed to be the strongest frequency, 4 times stronger than love. They said an MIT study. But anyway, but anger, I would think, is going to be, it is a powerful one, and it happens fast, doesn't it? An anger one shoots up fast. I think it's got a good accelerating speed, even if it's not the fastest sort of thing.
Oh yeah. No, it's emotions are I don't think people in some cases realize how powerful, how much energy there is to those. And so definitely go ahead.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, very powerful. So we're saying anger being the strongest. or maybe it is the strongest. Maybe MIT was the highest frequency or whatever. But anyway, so whenever you visit a family that reports having poltergeist, either one of these theories may be in play: the quote unquote evil spirit controlling, or the child itself, the emotional. And what you must never do is turn up to help someone with the preconceived idea about what is happening. Be prepared to learn. Okay. This story shows how things can get out of hand when a poltergeist gets the upper hand. Our eyewitnesses in this investigation were asked by a family to investigate disturbances in the house. The family involved has asked that their names and home location be changed. As you read the story, you will see why this is so important for the anonymity. At the time of the investigation, the family concerned lived in a semi-detached council house somewhere in Northamptonshire. They were suffering all kinds of poltergeist activity in their home. Furniture rearranged itself, pictures falling off walls, things thrown around and smashed, even writing scrawled across the walls by unseen hands. And all this was just the tip of the iceberg. The family were at their wits' end and decided to find a medium to help them. This was easier said than done. Real mediums are hard to find. Charlatans, on the other hand, are $2 for some. Yeah, get a lot of them for $1. Okay, and a waste of money and very expensive. So most mediums I know do not exploit people who need their help. I do not charge and do not charge for the services. That's what he's saying in his experience of 30 odd years. And I think that's probably true as well. So you're a medic, you're not just going to not help a person bleeding, are you? You know.
Right. Real quick point here. Sonia is a bot in the chat here. Says, isn't authenticity really love?
Wow, that's a bot saying that. What do you mean there's a bot? A computer saying that. The comment. That's a wonderful comment. I like that comment, and I think maybe it is. Maybe authenticity is love. So nice interjection.
Just for everyone listening, we are kind of joking here. That is just a profile name, but yeah, I thought it was a great comment as well. So yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. So yeah, you got to be prepared to learn. Yeah, they changed name here. Tip of the iceberg. Lots of bad stuff happening. Real mediums, they're going to probably want to try and help you out. So in this story then, so they managed to find a medium. They've asked to visit their house. There was a good one. And they soon decided there was more going on than they'd ever seen before, these mediums. Okay. And they would need some help. So they had to, the mediums that they got in had to say, no, this is too much for us. A bit like Constantine stuff, isn't it? You got to go and get a team in. So they get a team in, okay, and discuss the case with them before their visit to the house. They needed to be prepared for what they were about to see. On the evening of the first visit, the group of 4 drove to the house. They were late, and it was already getting dark. One of the ladies sitting in the back of the car noticed a light on one of the downstairs windows of the house. There was a tall, well-dressed man looking out of the window. The 4 people were a little embarrassed about arriving late on their first visit. After seeing the host waiting for them, they were unsure what kind of welcome they would receive. Knocking at the door, they were invited in by a lady of the house, and we're going to call her Sarah. She showed them into the sitting room. This was the room where the man was seen looking out of the window, but he was not there. As the 4 started chatting, they seen a guy at the window, but it's starting to, okay, he's not there. Okay, let's see what Sarah's saying then. As the 4 sat chatting with Sarah, she said her husband would be down shortly. He had just popped upstairs. Sure enough, about 5 minutes later, her husband, who we're going to call Peter, came into the room, and it was obvious. It was then obvious to the invited guests that this was not the same man that they'd seen in the window. Okay. Knowing a little of what was going on in the house, and the eyewitnesses asked Sarah and Peter who the man. Sorry, Go back. They asked the eyewitnesses, Sarah and Peter, who the man was that they had seen in the window when they just arrived. The couple seemed a little confused and so didn't know quite what they meant. Our witness described the man they had seen looking out from the window. He said he was tall, had short hair, was very well dressed, and the other guests said that they thought that the man, that was the man that they were about to meet, that was waiting for him, like sort of waiting at the door. Peter and Sarah could not identify the man from the description. Interestingly, though, there was a settee in front of the window in question, and there was no room to stand behind it to be able to look out of the window. You would need to kneel on the settee facing backwards to get a look out of the window. So it seems that it would have been impossible, because seated on the settee were Peter and Sarah and 3 teenage daughters. So I don't know.
So their perceptions were being altered there somehow, because otherwise they would have seen that furniture with those 5 people sitting on it, and all they saw was a figure in the window instead.
Isn't that strange? And then what about the people sitting in the sofa? Wouldn't they all notice the man standing in the middle of them all?
Yeah.
You'd think you'd notice that, wouldn't you? A well-dressed gentleman just in your sofa, halfway in it, halfway out.
Yeah. Yep.
Anyway, really creepy. Moving on. So they've had things smashed around as well, bearing in mind. So they've got this creepy old man. And so, I'm looking down. Yeah, so you'd have to kneel on it. It seemed impossible that someone could be there. So later on in the investigation, this part would prove to be significant. The names of the 3 girls we're going to say is Anne, Rachel, and Rebecca, or Becky for short. At the time of the first visit, Becky was out at a friend's house, and Anne and Rachel were sitting on the settee in front of the window. The medium asked the 2 girls to describe a typical day at the house. Anne just shrugged her shoulders, unwilling to talk. Rachel, on the other hand, explained that she's tried to stay out of the house as much as possible. It's too weird if you were to stay in here, she said. The medium then asked Sarah and Peter to briefly explain the events of the last few weeks for the benefit of the other guests. Peter said that things began slowly at first. A picture fell off the wall here in the sitting room. They thought nothing of it at the time, but then 2 more fell off the wall in other rooms on the same day. Over the following couple of days, things started to escalate. Ornaments were thrown across at the girls' bedrooms with such force that they shattered into pieces and they hit the walls, sending fragments in all directions. Sarah suggested that she should show the guests around the house so they could get a mental picture of the layout. As the group climbed the stairs, they heard loud crashing noises that came from the bathroom. On investigating, it was found that a small mirror had been smashed against the wall above the bath. One of the guests said it was lucky no one was in the bath at the time, as they would have been cut by the flying glass. Sarah explained that this was the strange part. With the ornaments being thrown around, the glass breaking, no one has ever been hurt. It seemed that there was not a room in the house that had not been affected in some way or another. So every single room in the house has had activity, and in the girls' bedroom you could clearly see the dents in the wall testifying to the force of which items had been thrown. Things had also been moved from one room to another, putting something like a bunch of keys that when you want to find them in another room a short while later, you're finding them there. So Sarah and Peter, in their bedroom, they suggest that they're going to sort of check that out because that's where that happened. So they're doing a tour, explaining that's where this happened, that's where that happened.
Right.
Said okay, So it all seems a bit odd. And it says at the end of the tour, of the house, it was clear. Let's jump back. Sorry, just checking the clock. At the end of the tour of the house, it was clear to the investigating team that this was not going to be a quick fix job. This house would need studying over several weeks, or maybe even over several months. This is not what Peter and Sarah wanted to hear. The medium explained to him that they needed to find out what was causing the disturbances in the house. and also why they were doing it. Our witnesses explained that the thoughts of the team with me, first of all, there were writings scrawled across the wall that had apparently been done in a haphazard fashion. At first, we thought the writings could have been done by one of the girls using lipstick, but later the investigations find other scrawlings and messages around the house in places that had been left empty that the girls didn't go to. Over the next few weeks, we saw a great deal of activity in one of the girls' bedrooms, beds shaking, quilts being pulled off, and all that kind of thing, clothes being thrown around, that sort of stuff. Later we found, in this particular room that had been created after structural alterations had been made to the upper part of the house, something was getting annoyed, and obviously it didn't want the girls sleeping there. Things got so bad that in the end, the girls refused to go in the bedroom. They just wouldn't go in that room anymore. The house was filled with electrical items. Sorry.
No problem.
Yeah, you won't want to be in there, would you, James?
No, and I think we'll just talk about what we have so far here for the last minute or so, and then we'll pick it up if you don't mind next if you don't mind doing another segment there.
Sure, yeah, no worries.
That's not uncommon for people that were teenagers or kids that have experience and like a lot of experiences in their homes to eventually they just get out of there as soon as they can. Like once they turn, 16, 17, whatever, they'll get out, they'll move out right away. And in some cases the activity does stop, other cases it doesn't. So I've heard that on a lot of different shows and, just reading a lot of different stories from people. So that can happen. That kind of activity can happen, and it can be going back to the sort of the stress and the trauma from all that can, change people's lives and their direction of their lives, for years to come. So that doesn't surprise me that they were even trying to stay out of certain rooms, and then the one daughter was not even in the house for that first visit of that group. So, so I think just everyone hang on 1 minute. We'll be right back, and we'll keep on going with this one story here. And thank you for listening to Salcedo Paranormal. Back in 1 minute.
And so the race is on to get to the 6th annual Mid-Michigan Paracon. Tickets nearly gone, get your skates on. Serious business, don't be accused of being so lazy and need schooling and discipline by a cannabis bomb. We needed an intrepid hero that was very strong. St. James Salcedo to represent Troubled Minds Radio so close. Please donate to my mate, PayPal and Vimeo, Salcedo, PARANORMAL.podbean.com. The very spooky nature of Salcedo Paranormal is great for a podcast flavour. This work takes typical marketing grifting to love the labour. We pray for the day when people look like a Leasia. This weird encounter's small or crazier and crazier, gripping, shocking, figure you hear in Asia. Side-splitting laughter from ghost riff drifting. This time slips, time shifting. And Casper boosting mics without a trace, I call it cloud lifting. I'm intent to present the sentiment. If you like the content, donate. Be heaven sent, do us all a favour, donate to James. This message was made by the famed great raider, Liam Martin. Crazy killer clowns, did you know, was my major. So donate today, and you'll probably see me in town, holding the death waiver. I'm not saying it's aliens, but the clues in the name. On one half Liam Neeson, you don't mean to take it. Salcedo, PARANORMAL.podbean.com.
Now, as I've said before, modern life in the city is full of hidden dangers. We are here to learn how to defend ourselves.
Mr. Miyagi used to say, if you're looking for revenge, you could start by digging 2 graves. He was right. The only way to stop Cobra Kai is if we all work together. But always remember, the reason we learn karate is to show the world that you're not a bunch of pansy asses.
We're going to be looking at how you can use the
show them that you're tough.
Energy of a would-be assailant.
Because eagles don't get shit.
And turn it into a
they're the ones that do this shit.
Positive force.
Don't forget, being a badass doesn't mean being an asshole.
When you're ready, come at me.
The goal isn't to hurt. The goal is to win at all costs.
Turning their aggression to our advantage.
Mr. Miyagi used to say,
back up.
Now is the time to show
Forgiveness. Passion. Mr. Miyagi used to say, if you...
Want to see some windmill again? I don't want to see any
He
Jackie
was right.
Chan.
If you have hate in your
If you
heart,
got a set of keys on you, stick them in your hand and make
I
them
know it's not
count.
easy, but you have to do whatever you can to
Beat the living crap out of him. You let him push you around, you gotta swoop down like an eagle. Grab him with your claws and sink your fangs into him. But I don't ever want you to start the fight. I just want you to finish it.
We're good. Do I make myself clear?
You are listening to Salcedo Paranormal with your host, James Salcedo.
Okay, welcome back to Salcedo Paranormal. And thank you all for listening so far. And thanks again to Rohan for being on the show with me here. And let's just get right back into the story since we've kind of already, I think we've plugged the station a good amount, which of course we want to. But get right back into the story here if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. No problem. So I'm not sure how long it is. We just jumped in blind, but let's go. Okay, so the girl's having trouble. They don't want to go in the bedroom anymore. They're just refusing now. Like you mentioned, that kind of stuff happens, and you would just run away from it. So they went on to say that you're going to like this bit, I reckon. You'll see a link here. The house was filled with electrical items. I always think that's hello.
Yeah. That never happens. I mean, that's not connected at all. No.
You know, so it seems key, doesn't it? I can't believe it took years for me to make that connection. But yes, the electrical stuff. And so they're full of it. Their house is full of it. And it says it was more than the norm as well. So, there were televisions in all the rooms, video recorders and computers, you name it, they had it. So,
wow. Okay.
So that's just to set the scene. They kind of, if that is a thing, they're begging for it. So, or I think it's conduits. I think that's what it is. I think having electromagnetic fields, it just gives you a medium, quote unquote. It gives you like as in water or whatever sound goes in air as a medium. Yeah. So I think it's the electricity thing, the fields. I think the like leaning on fields, like leaning on a force field in some way. I think it's a bit like that. Like the other side of the glass.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Automatically having all that stuff does not automatically, I don't think, lead to that necessarily. But if you're already having activity, plus you're bringing in, and for whatever reasons you like technology, whatever, it has to be a negative thing or we're going to get all this tech to monitor all this. No, it can just be people like to have their own TVs and computers. I mean, especially going far enough back, once computers started coming out, everybody wanted one. So all that stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have activity just by having that. But if you already had activity, then I could see that really helping to increase it as well.
Yeah, it's a great point. And obviously, if it was just the technology, everyone would be getting it all the time, wouldn't they? These are rare cases.
Exactly.
But you like say it seems to be a factor though, where maybe if these things are stacking up, where you've got a lot of electricity, you're on a ley line, you've got water running under the property, a troubled teenager, and your missus is doing witchcraft, then you know.
Yeah. That's good for 3 or 4 or 5 of those things, that could be the reason for things going on there. So sorry, I derailed you a little bit there. Go right ahead.
No, you're right. So it's filled with electrical. Well, I think we're exploring this stuff, aren't we? So we have to kind of do the little cliff notes. That's what it's all about. So they've got equipment in sort of all over the place. You make a good point. It's not blame Sanyo and Panasonic.
Yeah. Also, limestone in the chat, real quick. Sonia mentions again, was the home built on limestone or near limestone, and that or even some places are built with limestone in their walls. So, that's a possibility as well.
Oh, is limestone? Oh, you can teach me something then. How's limestone relevant?
It's something in the energy that the way it can contain or hold their energy. It's part of that idea of the stone tape theory, where it's something to do with the energy field and the minerals in it, and can be conductive, I guess, to electricity. I don't know the exact details. It's just something that I've heard mentioned a lot in cases in some places where they say that certain kinds of stone, including limestone, can maybe contain energy and contain those sort of energy fields that you call residual hauntings, where there's the same thing happening over and over again, and it's just basically a 3D image or sound of previous events that is happening, and there's no consciousness directly involved. It's just, but you're seeing and hearing previous event, so in a location. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, actually, wow. I've heard of that as well, like the tape recorder, the chemistry, because it's the same kind of chemistry as an actual cassette, isn't it? That you find in some of these walls.
Right.
That's fascinating. Yeah. So if you said it was 3D, that's fascinating as well, because if it was on a cassette tape, that's like, it's two-dimensional, it's all there, all the information. But if it's in 3D against a 2D plane like a wall, you're not getting the whole scene, are you? And that now makes sense to me why, when I've seen investigations into that, they're getting lots of broken language, broken voices, not whole conversations. And you think, if it's in 3D, like a sphere leaning into the wall, you're going to have a lot of data missing, aren't you? It's anyway it intersects, sort of thing. So, okay, kind of makes sense. But limestone, again, that's another fascinating thing, because I just happened to, when I was a kid, I really loved this Flight of Dragons cartoon film. Okay. And it's where a guy gets whisked away into a magical world, because it was a long story, but he ends up turning into a dragon, right? And he has to learn how to be a dragon. And the dragons have to eat limestone in this film, because the way that they breathe fire, they have to eat limestone, and they've got an electrical thimble that they can on the roof of the mouth, and they need that to cause a spark to ignite the fire. And the limestone is the chemistry that is like being part of what they need to ignite it, and they have an extra set of lungs that makes them buoyant. So the wings don't need to be gigantic. So it's like electric and limestone is in a cartoon from the 80s.
Yep. Yeah, definitely.
So there's definitely an electrical connection there. Mm-hmm. So I think something there. But anyway, what are we doing how long are we doing for time? I'm not sure.
I've got that. I'll let you know when we get to a couple minutes here.
Okay.
And,
Okay. Brilliant. All right then. So I'll move on with. So we'll move on with the story then. So they don't want to go in the house in the bedroom anymore. That activity in every room, but we've discovered there's lots of electrical equipment in every room, and so most of what was, and even the computers were like interfered with, and even the equipment was interfered with. So one of the computers was switched on and started typing by itself, producing sheets of type. Even the audio dial light started to flash on the modem. Talking about a ghost phone, trying to send you an email.
Yeah, wow.
Send you an audio file, James, and then it will, like, I don't know, do something weird to you, maybe. Cool. So it's messing with the computer. Apparently an audio signal being detected by the modem. And most of what was typed on the computer was abusive language, abusive stuff aimed at the girls. So it must have been like in English then.
Right.
Or a coherent language of some sort. It doesn't say it wasn't English. So so typing on a computer then. Okay. And each visit, it says these investigators then, so each visit gave more and more evidence of poltergeist activity. So it's been pretty bad so far. I've had all the classic stuff, and it just keeps getting worse and worse and worse. It says, even when the team were not present for the events, they still continued. One day, while friends were visiting, a large mirror upstairs in Sarah and Paul's bedroom crashed to the floor. You could hear the glass breaking and shattering. Sure enough, on investigation, a large heavy mirror had indeed fallen, smashing on the floor. Sarah went to the top of the stairs and shouted down, asking her friend to take a look. but as they re-centered the bedroom mirror, once again hanging on the wall without much of a scratch. So it's like, what? Hang on, someone's seen it smash, but then they've got someone else gone and checked, and it's okay. And you mentioned that in the beginning about the tall man standing in the sofa, and yet they didn't, like an illusion thing.
And also, I mean, mirrors, and that's twice now in this house where mirrors have been involved, either actually in that one case with the one in the bathroom, or in this case with just the sound of it, and then the image of it, but then it being not actually broken. Or I wonder if it was somehow, I mean, we don't really know how time works. It could have been some kind of a weird time anomaly where it did break, and then something happened and put it back together again.
Yeah. And then it's going to really weird you out. And it goes on to say here, I haven't read this story before. I'm just noticing as I look on here that that would be upsetting for me. If I'm having problem, it's like one of those things when, that's like a horror trope. If you're in a situation that's it's distressing, but nobody believes you, right? And it keeps happening and keeps going on, and that's all right. That's distressing anyway. Even as a kid, nobody believes you didn't steal the banana, sort of thing, right? You didn't take the cookie, and it really bothers you if you didn't do it. If you did it, you're kind of like no, but if you didn't, it was such a travesty. So it says Sarah, who's been on and shouted for him to have a look, and then the mirror's okay, and it says that Alan goes to explain that the house owner Sarah, at this point, she just starts breaking down in tears, having a breakdown. Because that was enough for her, that bit. The mirror broke and then not. So whatever it was in that house causing these things to happen, it was winning the battles of will. It was grinding them down, and that's like a thing of like it's almost driving you crazy. It sounds, and that'd be even more distressing. And then you wonder if you were crazy, and then who do you tell? Yeah. Worrying stuff.
Yeah, and I mean, I wonder, going back to the text from that PC, I wonder. Now I know it was sort of saying bad things to the girls, but I'm wondering again I wonder which of the girls, if this was something. Basically, I'm wondering, was it attached to one or multiple of them? Because if it was just one, it could have been the one sort of unconsciously and or with help from whatever this is, putting this text out on this computer towards the others.
Yeah, I don't. Well, it doesn't really specify, so I'm gonna presume that it's just general on everybody. It's just general activity sort of thing.
Yeah, so it could have been. Yeah.
But then I suppose if the girls were, if the girls were in its room, whatever this thing is, then maybe it's like particularly angry with them. Maybe it's angry at everyone being there, but you're in my personal space,
Yeah, could be.
So anyway, so going on then. So they've had all this. She's breaking down. There's so many disturbances, and so they're like, right, this got to get serious now. So they're going to get the mediums to decide that a seance is required. So we needed to try and contact the spirits that was proven so troublesome, and just get to the why. The cause seems to be, spirit. So you got the cause,
right?
Hopefully, so get to the why. Try and get to solutions. That's what we're trying to do. So it goes on to say, you may be thinking that a medium had left it a bit late to contact spirits that should have been done at the start. Well, he did want to, but the family was against such contact. They just wanted to get rid of it all. Okay, which is fair enough. Because this is why we need to educate people with the paranormal, James. That's why you're doing a great job at doing this, because people are afraid of this stuff. And so, these people are already disturbed, so it's probably difficult to go to a medium, and then they don't want to do the seance bit, which might have, maybe that can fix things straight away, sort of thing. I don't know about seances. You know more than me.
The other thing with that is sometimes investigations and or seances, whatever, these events, even if they're done for the right reasons, in some cases, they can make things worse. So I don't blame the family for not wanting to start off with that, actually.
Oh, wow. Wow. So your kind of greatest fear of that stuff can actually sort of happen there. So, yeah. Okay.
Not every time, not in every case. You know, as I always say, I think all the negative stuff is more rare than Hollywood likes us to think. But it can happen that way, yes.
Right. Okay. Well, we'll move on then. Right. Okay. So they're going to try the seance. They're going to try this, and like I say, the family's looking at this as a bit of a last resort at the minute. It's sort of serious breaking down. So they need to try and contact some spirits. Decided they're going to go for it. So yeah. So by now, as things stood, they thought they had nothing to lose. So yeah, there was at the end of the tether. So the team, including the witnesses, returned to the house and decided to go into the lounge. There's a good place to start. And I suppose that's where they'd seen the man. So that's as good a place as any to start. Anne had also been invited with the consent of appearance because the team thought the spirit was using her as an amplifier. Oh, so they are specifying one called Anne. So you're on it.
There we go.
Boom, fit the theme. Must be a theme, James. So you've been doing this long enough, you know your stuff. So remember the sighting of the man in the window?
Yes.
Anne was sitting in the exact spot. Anne was sitting in the exact spot the spirit used when appearing to the team. So there was a certain spot. It might be easier to talk to the spirit with her present. So they're finding out stuff. They're doing it, James. They're doing it. They've got some information now, like investigators. You know, they've got a spot it likes to appear from.
Also, if I'm not mistaken, Anne was the one that did not want to talk in the beginning.
True that. Hey, good point, James, because now you take me back. I'm thinking now, because when you're reading, it's a bit sort of different, but now you take me back. I wondered then if she had something to hide or she was particularly...
Yeah. Well, that's the fact is why she could be quiet, but still the fact that she was is yeah. And then they found other things obviously to indicate that might be so. We got about 7 minutes, just so you know, and then we'll take one last break, I think, and then do one last segment. So you can continue on for now. I'll let you know when we get close to the next break here.
Okay, sure. Yeah, we've got about a page and a half, so I think that will be about right. So we're gonna have this seance then. Okay, last chance resort. So sitting in a circle, the group managed to contact not one but two spirits. Both were using Anne's life energy to do mischief. A little like using psychokinesis, but through someone else. One of the spirits was a local man who had been accused of a crime he had not committed. He was, however, found guilty and hung. The second spirit was that of a boy. All they could find out about him was that he enjoyed throwing things about and making mischief. The fact that there was two of them meant that they were having a bit of a ball. It sounds like they're working as a team at the expense of the poor family that he had latched onto. Oh my goodness. Oh wow, James, can two random spirits meet in the spirit world and both decide to screw with people together? Wow.
It can be that, or it can be that they might even be that they want to work together. They may just be encountering each other, and then who knows what their relationship is. Sometimes I've heard multiple spirits in one location may not even meet each other, depending on what time periods they're from. Similar other details like that, they may not even know of each other, or in some cases they do. So it's hard to say for sure what's going on there, what the dynamic is. But the fact that there's two, that may explain why the activity is so strong as well, possibly.
That's an excellent point. Yeah, that is an excellent point. Could be amplifying it, and also I'm thinking of that thing through time, not seeing each other. That kind of tracks, doesn't it? And also as well, I'm thinking this: if there's psychic energy available to be manipulated, and there's some electronics which it seems can sort of help that along a little bit, or help to lubricate the process and whatever, then that would be, from a spirit's point of view, doing these kinds of things, that would be like a good fishing spot, wouldn't it? So I suppose it makes sense. It probably glows like it. You know what I'm saying? It's probably attracts you like a moth to a flame. That's probably what. It just kind of makes sense.
Yep, I do think that in some cases, I've had it happen. I've had unknown or basically other entities just passing through my apartment. I think that does happen here and there. So even if they're just drawn to it and then they leave, there could be, it's that's why it's so hard to pin anything down for sure. But yeah, so definitely possible there.
Okay, so let's quickly move on with this story then. So they've had the sounds. They're trying to find out about the boy. This seems it's two spirits, and both latched onto him. Like I say, could be explain why they're getting such strong activity. So most of the hostly seem to be coming from the spirit of the man who was hung unjustly. It sort of makes sense. He's going to be really angry, and hanging's been gone for a while. So we've been doing that for decades, sort of thing. So I suppose he had a lot of time to be angry. And it says that the medium thought he had been able to settle the spirit of the boy. He had decided to move on and leave the family in peace. The spirit of the man, however, was having none of it. Even the medium needed a break away from contact with him. We're wearing the medium down as well. He must be a really, really angry guy. Wow, okay. So the next part of the story was witnessed by two of the investigating team, one of which was our witnesses. So, because I remember they've had to bring in a second team to help with the seance stuff as well. So,
right.
So the original team got to see this next part as well. So the next part was a worrying escalation of the level of power of the poltergeist. Okay. Becky was upstairs having a bath when suddenly an ornament came flying into the bathroom from one of the bedrooms across the hallway. So he took it from one room and held it straight through the door into the bathroom. And it landed in the bath, barely missing poor Becky, who screamed in terror. This was followed a couple of days later by a truly terrifying thing that happened to Peter. Two of the team had arrived early to do some tests, and Peter was upstairs having a shave. Suddenly he shouted out that he was being cut and came rushing down to show his wounds. Lifting his shirt, you could see red marks across his back, like scratches made from fingernails. Now instantly, our eyewitnesses thought these were marks could have been self-inflicted. Now instantly, our witnesses thought that these marks could have been self-inflicted. However, as they watched a second set of red scratches traced across Peter's back as they were looking at it.
Yeah.
Wow, that's nuts. That's crazy. The scratches became very inflamed and red, but did not bleed. Peter said he felt the scratches go across his back, but could not do anything to stop them. Interestingly, though the marks settled down within 10 minutes and left a mark, unlike an old scar, the investigators had never seen anything like this before or since. It's a different kind of injury.
That is rare, but I have heard that in a couple of cases. Yeah. Huh. Yeah, so I think we'll got about a minute left. I don't know how much more there is to go in that section.
That's pretty. Yeah, that section. That's about the end. That's pretty much the end of the story. So I mean, this is the end of the story. So they're just saying that the sad part of this is unfortunately the investigating team were unable to follow the haunting any further. The family said that they wanted no more probing into the poltergeist activity. They left the escalating problems rather than curing it. So, they just didn't want to do it anymore. And Alan's saying I can't really blame him because it kind of sort of made it worse a little bit. Yeah. So at least they got rid of the boy though. So at least there's that part.
Yeah. Yeah. Sounds like he was ready to go, but yeah, I mean, I wouldn't, that's, yeah. I mean, I think that is what leads to in so many cases. You hear about the house in this one, part of town where, people are always moving in there and they're moving out of there constantly. And I wonder in those cases, and I've heard stories about that and, different shows and things I've read where that is why, there's just so much activity there. People can't stay there. But yeah, if you want to stick around for one more segment, Rohan, we'll do one more and then we'll call it a night. So, and
sounds good to me. Thank you.
Okay. Yep, we'll be back in just 1 minute and with one last segment of the show.
You're listening to Troubled Minds. Join us as we discuss an upside-down world that nobody seems to notice.
U.S. employment increased by the most in 8 months in September as hiring rose broadly, pointing to persistent labor market strength that could give the Federal Reserve ammunition to raise interest rates again, though wage growth is slowing. The larger-than-expected surge in non-farm payrolls last month and sharp upward revisions to July and August jobs counts reported by the Labor Department in its closely watched employment report on Friday cemented expectations that economic activity accelerated in the third quarter. HROZA, Ukraine, half the village is gone. Ukraine hamlet reels after missile strike in a burial plot next to a field outside the remote Ukrainian hamlet of Rohan. Residents removed undergrowth and cleared away litter to make space for more graves. Working quietly, it was something to distract them from the horror of what happened the day before. As dozens of people gathered in the local cafe for a meal to honor a soldier who died in the war against Russia, a missile struck, killing at least 52 people. And now, back to the strangeness.
You're tuned into Troubled Minds Radio Network on KUAP Digital Broadcasting, where we contemplate the mysteries of the cosmos through the lens of philosophy, magic, and more.
It is spring, moonless night in the small town, starless and Bible black, the cobbled streets silent and the hunched quarters and rabbits wood limping invisible down to the slow black, crow black, fishing boat bobbing the sea. The houses are blind as moles, though moles see fine tonight in the snouting velvet dingles, or blind as Captain Cat there in the muffled middle by the pump and the town clock. The shops in mourning, the welfare hauling, and all the people of the lulled and dumbfound town are sleeping now. Hush, the babies are sleeping. The farmers, the fishers, the tradesmen and pensioners, cobblers, schoolteacher, postman and publican, fast and slow asleep. The undertaker and the fancy woman, drunkard, dressmaker, preacher, policeman, the web-foot cockle women, and the tidy wives. Young girls lie bedded soft or glide in their dream with rings and trousseaux, bridesmaided by glowworms down the aisles of the organ-playing wood. The boys are dreaming wicked, or of the bucking ranches of the night and the jolly Rogered sea. And the anthracite statues of the horses sleep in the fields, and the cows in the byres, and the dogs in the wet-nosed yards, and the cats nap in the slant corners, or lope, sly, streaking and needling on the one cloud of the roofs. You can hear the dew falling, and the hushed town breathing. Only your eyes are unclosed to see the black and folded town vast and slow asleep.
Okay, we are back. Hopefully I'm giving you enough time there in between each one, Rohan, to do what you gotta do, I think. But thank you for being here on this show. This has been amazing. Just all these stories of experiences, and we're looking forward to this last segment here, and then we can do this again some other time, and keep going with that book, and but it's been amazing, and thank you for reading so much of this for us.
Yeah, no problem, James. Appreciate it. It's fun to do. It's fun to have a look at some of these things. So yeah, and yeah, you do. That was enough time actually. It's like the clapperboard in the movies. You get the thing, the clicker thing. Click.
Right. Yeah.
That's just to make a peek in the audio file, so you can see where the cuts are.
Yeah.
That's why. So as long as you've got a few seconds, got enough.
That's what I figure. Yeah. Okay. Good. Yeah. So I don't know if you want to read more, or if you want to just talk about all these things in general for the last segment. Where you want to go?
I think that last one is with a little sort of summary on that, because that kind of freaky. Because see, with I didn't realize that kind of you could have spirits teaming up, and I hadn't realized that you can get these kind of I know you hear about scratches and stuff, but like happening in front of people, that's kind of weird. That is, and then my brains just went on to. I know it's not quite the same, but what about that stigmata Jesus thing and the scratches? And I'm
Right.
thinking, what's that? Have you ever investigated that? I know it's a bit of a sidetrack, off the rails, as we say.
Oh, not that we ever do that anywhere on this network at all. But no, I haven't looked into that so much. I've heard a lot about it over the years, and how there's just it does seem to be the main reason I haven't looked into that particular case is it's more of a religious thing, from what I've heard, and that's not something I haven't really done a lot of looking into the paranormal through as it relates to different religions and things. I think that would be a good thing to do at some point. I just haven't gotten there yet. But you are right. It does seem like it's similar. I think with the stigmata, I think that's more extreme. There's more ongoing sort of some of those marks don't ever leave, or if they do, they keep coming back, if I'm not mistaken. And this is all just off the top of my head. So anyone out there who is an expert in this, please don't no emails. I don't need any emails, because I'm just thinking this is just based on what I've heard, as always with all these shows. But these the scratch marks, yeah, those are now, of course, again, a lot of people will automatically sort of jump to, oh, well, that has to be, and also because of the paranormal TV reality shows, that has to be a demon, has to be negative. And I think in some cases it can be those things. I don't think it always has to be. I think in this case, it seems more likely it's just that angry man that was there that is just maybe getting more fuel from the seance that happened, and now he's able to sort of make those scratches. And I don't blame the family for after that being like, okay, that's enough, we're done. I wonder how long. I would imagine I wouldn't be surprised if you were to talk with them, I wouldn't be surprised to find out that, oh, we moved out of there, not long after, because that's a lot to deal with. So, but of course, the one thing that a lot of movies and TV shows don't talk about is, people just can't always get up and move easily right when they want to. When it comes to homes and places where it's a house, where they bought it or they're paying for it, they may not have the money to move for quite some time.
That's a fantastic pragmatic point as well. Like I say, often that is in the movies thing where you've just bought the new house that no one wants to buy on a great deal, right? And then it's haunted. And then, like I say, you've got this massive mortgage you probably just took for it, or like I say, maybe you got on a great deal and you're trying to step up. That's how they sort of show it to you. And like I say, you can't just go. But then if they're breaking down, maybe they started looking at selling. Like you say, you can look at it. But then what about the housing? So being a bit practical now, being very sensible. But what about with the housing and insurance then? Because I remember hearing somewhere, it might have been on Coast to Coast years ago, that some states had this thing about, like, if somebody's been murdered in the house, you have to declare it. And it can like depreciate the value of the house. But then on the other hand, people, if it's an area that's into the paranormal, it can make your house be worth more. So,
Oh yes, both of those. It's different from state to state, but yeah, the thing with murders is definitely a thing. Also, I think now in more recent years, the paranormal, saying yes, this house appears to be haunted. That is a thing where some people now will. I mean, to be honest, if I ever get rich, I will probably be buying a home that is said to be haunted, not necessarily to live there, but just as a sort of a place to investigate. I mean, a lot of people will, like, when they hear about people that are on those reality shows that buy homes for that reason, they kind of think that's weird, but I don't think so. I would do the same thing. So in some cases with people that are in those extreme hauntings, even if they can't afford to move out, they still do, and then they just take enormous losses. And so that's the thing as well. But it just varies from one case to another as to what the people do.
Yeah. And by the way, I particularly like vision if you were like winning the lotto or something, winning the super millions and getting a haunted mansion. But and then I like your thinking, James. It shows how serious you are about this stuff, because you know what that is? That is your own lab.
Exactly.
That's a giant lab. Always controlled conditions. You can have different rooms, different. Oh man, it'd be brilliant. My mind's already racing. You've probably been doing this, racing with this, but yeah, that's a great idea. And no, not thought of that.
Yeah, no, I would love to do that someday. Even just a small house, if it's a regular small house that's said to be active, I'd buy that, no problem. But yeah, so that is quite the case there, and again, sounds a lot like what you would hear in fiction, and over and over and over again, but I think it's and I'm glad that we covered that story tonight. But I think it's important just to point out, as I always do, I think these stories of these negative experiences, I don't think they're as common as the entertainment industry would like you to believe. And also, I think in some cases now, not so much with the scratches. That seems like a direct attack in a way, but I think when I've heard of on different shows and different stories, people talk about getting like a one scratch, just scratched just briefly. I don't think that's always an attack. I've heard this idea that these, whatever these are, whether it's spirits of humans or not, or just entities of any kind, sometimes they may not know, or they may be trying to reach out to people and they can't. And it's just really hard, either because of the environment or because they're just not used to maybe being what they are at that point. And so they may just be trying to touch someone to get their attention. And it may accidentally, in some cases, lead to a single scratch. That then, of course, obviously, I don't blame people for being freaked out at first, but I think in some cases, there's some of this activity can be mistaken for negative experiences when maybe it's not meant to be.
Oh, definitely, James. I concur, and because especially as well with the sort of crossover with the out-of-body experiences and the near-death experiences, the Robert Monroe books, journeys into some journeys somewhere. But yeah, his first book when he's describing all of that stuff, and that was his lab was the world, right? Because he's astral projecting.
Right.
So he's right. So who are your test subjects? It's people that you know. So because they can verify things for you on the other side, can't they?
Yep. Yeah.
Right.
Definitely.
So Robert Monroe, once he's starting to figure this stuff out, because he was freaked out at first, but he told his doctor, because he sort of knew him, and his doctor, he thought he might not think he's crazy, and then they decided to kind of like study it in private, just between the two of them, sort of thing. But once he discovered you can like touch stuff and things, he started trying to touch his wife, just like on the hip or whatever, to like tickle her. Mm-hmm. and she so she felt it and she verified it, but she says it felt like a pinch because he saw her wince away, and she says, "Yeah, don't do it again." Felt it, don't do it, because it was like a pinch on her kidneys, and she didn't like it, and it was just him just trying to touch her, give her a little squeeze.
Wow. Yeah. Yep. So that tracks. Yeah. No, that's I do think that, that's why I'm sort of I always, push for people to go with how they feel, not with what their mind is telling them is probably happening. Go with your intuition and your feeling of a situation. And I mean, not that can't ever be wrong, but I think more times than not, it's going to be accurate. And then maybe that can help you have a better experience and longer experience if you want that. And that's helped me a lot over the years with all my experiences. I always say, people say that, it sounds like you've had a lot of experiences. But I think it's all relative, because I've heard and talked to people that, compared to myself, there are people that have had a lot more experiences than I have. And they have them almost every day. I don't have that. I've just been around long enough now, years now, where I've had several experiences, probably, dozens. But that's because I'm going to be 42 in January. if you get, 3 or 4 experiences in a year, over multiple years or more, then you're going to eventually have a lot of experiences. So, but that is all relative. So, I don't know why I got in that point, but anyway, that's what happens when you do a talk show, I guess.
Yeah, well, that's it. Well, we're getting the feelings out. Were you talking about, I know you got on that point, because we're talking about emotion, aren't we? And we're talking about getting this stuff out and letting stuff out, and how these poltergeists interact with stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's the passion and the good and bad thing, because you like to make that differentiation that it's not all black and white, especially with this stuff, because it's got such a negative kind of reputation. And like I say, so we make a point there. Yeah, some of these really extreme ones, very rare. But at the same time, it's sort of there's the kindness side of things. We're not trying to do stuff. So we've got the Robert Monroe story to kind of balance it out, and that's a real life verified thing. We've accidentally pinched somebody too hard, sort of thing. And that thing of like trusting your feeling, you're onto something there, James, because I remember Dr. Richard Allen Miller, who's supposed to be a polymath, is a self-taught expert in several fields, been hired by governments and stuff, and for Navy SEALs, they taught them metaphysics and whatnot. So he was saying that you've got your brain, you've got 3 nervous systems to get your information about the world, and you've got your brain, neocortex, spine, and that nervous system, and then you've got neurons on your heart. So that's kind of like a nervous system. So you feel that feeling thing, right? And that talks to your brain. It's made of the same kind of stuff, right? But your gut, it's got I think it's called the enteric nervous system. It's like a web around your gut. That's a nervous system as well. Your gut brain. You've got a gut brain, and Dr. Richard Allen Miller, the super polymorph guy, he reckons that your gut is getting its information directly from hyperspace, directly.
Yeah.
So it's always right. However, the reason you get it wrong is because you start guessing what things are. You second guess it, you analyze it, don't you? But if you go with your gut, as they say, just the feeling and don't think, but then at the same time, you don't want to make rash decisions, do you?
Exactly.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But it's a tough one. But ask police officers, see what they think.
Yeah, I'm sure. Any kind of first responders, I mean, just things can happen so fast, and you have to make a decision that can have consequences one way or another. And yeah, I need to do a show on first responders and the paranormal, because that's one thing. A lot of shows do that at one point, because there's so many stories from people that, they have to respond to situations, and then they end up having experiences that they can't even really write about in their official reports, because they're, it's paranormal, and that's not accepted in so many places and in so many levels of society. And then it changes their lives forever. And sometimes it's, that there's a whole range of what kind of changes there are there. But yeah, if you look up any kind of, just look up first responders paranormal shows, you can find a ton of those. And those are some of the most amazing ones to listen to, because these are people that are out there for actual reasons to be doing things. They're not ghost hunting. They're not trying to have a good time in a way. They're doing their jobs. So, but yeah, and these mediums, sometimes I've heard over the years, and I've noticed that sometimes people, when they have experiences that they're some kind of a first responder, that will get them into the paranormal, and they'll start they'll get into investigating all that when they can in their free time, while they're not on the job, and then having also amazing experiences and start trying to figure things out. And I think that's it's probably the best outcome from that whole range of experiences there.
Yeah, and I suppose the first responders, like I say, the first on the scene, and they're going to see the stuff, and when it's intense emotions and all that, so they're going to see the PK ones for sure. And then if somebody does die, or it's a certain spot where, it's a bad corner and people get getting ran over there, then there's going to be a lot of so that just kind of track. And in terms of doing a first responders show, this is where I was leading with it, with the cops. they're sort of famous in pop culture for having a hunch, going with the gut feeling. So psychic cops, right? It should be studying that stuff, really, and they use mediums, don't they? But it's like you say, you can't go like the airline pilots. They can't report UFOs, really, because in the airline industry, especially, I think if you've had psych evaluations, they have to strike you off because you're flying passenger jets. You can't fly them anymore, right?
Yeah.
So it's a bit, and like you say, if you're a police officer, maybe doctors and nurses might be able to get away with talking about consciousness and or when the person dies and this happens, some weird stuff. But police officers, I don't think they get away with it, or military. I don't think they really get, you don't get to say it, do you? And like I say, maybe if you retire as a police officer and become a private detective, then you got free reign. Maybe then you can still keep your cop thing and do that, and use your connections. But pretty tough, and especially when you got like these, like I mentioned, Michael Shermer, top physicist, having an experience and going, "Oh my God, everyone! I never used to believe this stuff, but guess what?" And then changing his mind, it keeps it down again. Doesn't it? You think, "Yay, victory!" Thanks, Michael.
And I think there's just that, everyone that reacts to the paranormal in different ways, and even though it's hard, I don't blame people for that reaction, that sort of wanting to go back and say, no, that couldn't have happened that way. There must be a reason for that. And I think a lot of it, it's just there's people that really have to know how things work, or have this idea that they know how things work. And so when that idea or that image of how reality is supposed to work is distorted or broken, that's terrifying to them. And so they may have an experience, but if they only have one, especially, then I think over time, the more time that goes by, the easier it is to just try to write it off and not think about it anymore. So, and yeah, it's just, I think that's how it is. Going back to the first responders and then medical, people that work in the medical fields, I don't think they can really talk about a lot of this on the job site, but they definitely can put out their experiences on all kinds of websites online. And that's where you find these stories. In a lot of cases, some people do put their names, but a lot of them don't. They just use, profile names. And that's the only way they can get their stories out there. And, or, appearing on shows, but then just not giving their whole name, or just giving their first name, or, any of those things. So that's, but I mean, there's just so many stories from those fields that it's hard to deny that there's something going on there.
Yeah, and it's like you say, you made another astute point earlier about how when you're a first responder, you're there to do a job. You're not there with cameras and flare cameras and EM detectors, and you're not trying, you're not looking for it. So if you notice stuff when you're not looking for it, it must be pretty obvious. It's got to be in your face. It's got to tap you on the shoulder, innit, and say hi,
Yeah. Yep, definitely. And that goes across the board with ghosts or cryptids or UFOs, all those different things. Stories where there's more than one thing going on there. I mean, it's just, it really is it's a lot of fun to look into, but that's the stuff to me that is amazing, because again, these are people that, the whole credibility scale, most people will say that they're at the top of that scale. So I'm in that minority, I think, in a way that is like, well, everyone is credible to some degree. Not everyone is going to be making up stuff, or, but that's just my personal bias, and I'm aware of that. But yeah, I think we have a few minutes left here. And so, yeah, I want to thank you again for being on the show. What do you have, what are you thinking about covering on your show coming up in the days to come?
Oh, well, thank you for that, James. Yeah. Thank you. Yeah. Exiled Minds Podcast. Thinking about covering the Blemmy, the headless people. Thinking about might do that one next. Start writing a show on that, because I've not covered that. But like I say, I haven't done this show. I haven't done one on the ghost at all, really. I haven't touched on any of that stuff. And like I say, I've got a lot of questions. So maybe that's a show we need to cover. In fact, maybe we need to get you on. Maybe that's what I should do. Yeah, that's the way to do it.
Yeah,
maybe
happy to join you. Yep, whenever you want to do it, let me know.
Of course,
we'll go from there.
Yeah, we'll definitely do that. Like Sam, I don't keep banging on about it, but yeah, I'm excited about this radio station stuff, and I think in years to come we'll be able to look back, James, and say, it was here at the start, and we've worked hard, and it's in an important service. It's going to be that's how I'm trying to see it. I mean, this is an important service for the community, for those that have not swallowed red pills, and I think the whole world is having to wake up to a lot of the realities that they really thought wasn't, and it can be traumatic, as we've seen with some of these experiences. Even just finding out you've been lied to can be really traumatic,
Definitely.
So,
yeah.
It's important stuff.
Yep. Yeah, well, thank you for being on. I'm going to close out the show here and talk a bit about upcoming events and go from there. So if you want to mute up after this, but thank you again for joining me. And again, for everyone that listens to the podcast feed, you will notice something different about this show. And I'm really looking forward to hearing what you all think, and hopefully we'll get you all to listen to the station. So thank you, Rohan, and I will talk to you later.
Pleasure. Thank you very much, James. Thanks for having me. Cheers.
No problem. So yeah, everyone, thank you for listening. Just want to mention again, I will be at the Mid-Michigan Paracon this November 4th and 5th. That's a Saturday and Sunday at the Soaring Eagle Casino and Resort in Mount Pleasant, Michigan. Tickets are probably running out, so I would definitely, if you think you can make it, go get those right away. And you'll find me wandering around there and making audio recordings of myself and anyone that wants to join me, talking about all things paranormal, from thoughts of how it works to experiences, all those different things. So, and it's going to be my first time attending one of these things. So any friendly faces would definitely be appreciated if you're able to go. If not, if you'd like to support the show, again, through PayPal and Venmo, all those links can be found in the episode description. So I don't like to bring that up really, but at this point in time, I am living on a fixed budget, and I do the show with whatever I can. And if you like the show and you want to support it, those are ways to do that. And all those can be found in every episode description. So along with the link to Rohan's show. And I definitely want to thank him again. And thank you all for listening. And I will talk to you all on the next episode of Salcedo Paranormal. Next stream will be on Saturday. So thank you all. Take care and have a great night.